trying to get into the Delicate Arch to catch sunrise. We got about a 1.5 mile hike to go, so it's gonna have to be a hard push to make it in time. But welcome to the Arches National Park. The trail to Delicate Arch is really good. So some things that you definitely need to bring when you're gonna hike in this part of the woods is definitely water. Lots of it. It's about 50 degrees when we left the truck. So you're gonna also want to dress in layers. Make sure that you got a small pack or something that you can put your layers in as it starts warming up, because once the sun comes up it gets warm pretty quick. We're trying to hustle so we can catch sunrise. Got about a 1.5 miles to go to get there, but I think we might be just a little bit late.
So we've made it to the Delicate Arch just in time for the sun to come up, and it is just now starting to hit the arch here. We've been watching it come over the canyon. It was really cool. Great hike. We'll take our time going back because there's lots to see, but we were kind of in a hurry to get here in time for the sun to come up over the mountain, so we were kind of in a hurry.
We were hoofing it. It wasn't a bad hike. A little steeper, I think, than I
Anticipated?
was expecting.
Yeah.
And being in a rush didn't help because, you know, normally we just kind of hike at a really slow pace and enjoy it, but we were in a rush to try and get to the location before the sun came up, so we didn't have much chance to just kind of take a slow trip. So we'll do more videoing on the way out. It's a little dark in this morning on the way in anyway, so
a lot of cool things to check out.
Right?
A lot of cool things.
Right, so let's zoom right by us. Well, just a little while ago we were way up there checking out the Delicate Arch. We decided we want to come down here into this little valley because there's like another little arch back in there behind us. So we wanted to see if we could find our way down to it and maybe get some video and some pictures of that. Pretty out here today. Nothing but blue sky. It's been a good walk. It's not bad. Got the jacket off now because it started warming up. But so if you come here, know that it probably takes half hour, 45 minutes maybe to hike that trail from the parking lot up to Delicate Arch. The trail is pretty well lit, so you can start doing it when dawn starts showing up. And that's probably going to be the best time to take pictures, because once the sun really starts getting up, the sky starts getting blown out a little bit, especially on a blue day, clear like this, there's no clouds. And then of course later in the afternoon towards sunset, I hear it's beautiful because the sun is setting and putting the light right onto the arch. So that'd be a great time to come out here as well. Definitely need a decent set of shoes. You're walking on rocks a lot, and in around the arch it's pretty slopey, so maybe hiking poles would be good in there, but good shoes, patience. There's a lot of people that show up, and everybody wants to get underneath the arch and get a picture of themselves taken under the arch. We did too. So, you know, just have some patience if you're looking to get photos of just the arch without people in it. So pack your patience in your bag when you pack your water.
Don't forget the water.
Don't forget the water. And it hasn't been bad this morning because it's still early.
Yeah.
But the sun is definitely starting to warm things up real quick. So in the next half hour or so, we'll be consuming lots of water.
Gordon gets to walk around, find a way down into this little gully right here. The lens cap rolled down the mountain, down the rock here. We are now at the Garden of Eden, and this is pretty cool. There's lots of rocks. We're going to go find a shady spot and eat our lunch that we brought with us in amongst all of these wonderful rock formations. How many people can say that they've had lunch
in the Garden of Eden?
In the Garden of Eden.
Alice and I just had lunch in the Garden of Eden. Wow. We didn't go real far up into the Garden of Eden. It's beautiful rock formations. But we went up, got under the shade of one of the rock pillars here in the Garden of Eden. Had a really beautiful view. Enjoyed our lunch. So things that you should bring with you include a lunch. Because you're going to be here for hours. There's nowhere that I've seen yet anywhere inside of Arches to eat. The closest place I believe is probably back all the way into Moab, which yesterday we went into Moab and the traffic was pretty bad getting in there. So pack a lunch, pack plenty of water. There is water available at the visitor center when you come in, and back at Devil's Garden. So there's two places where you can top your water off. If you've done what we've been doing and then exploring in between those spots, you can get water at one of those two places.
the north window. We haven't come to the south window yet, but that's really super cool. And this is the trail that we just walked up in the parking lot down there. It's not a bad walk, pretty easy. Definitely like stairs, but not too bad. And you have this one over here.
Welcome to our tips for a successful adventure to Arches National Park. Tip number 5.
Plan your day. Decide what hikes that you would like to do ahead of time. How long is it going to take you to get there? What drives you may want to take while you're there. And how much parking is going to be available where you want to go. If you plan all of this out, I think it would make your day go a lot smoother, knowing what to expect or hoping to know what to expect.
This Arches National Park, just like every national park that we've been to, has limited parking, so planning your day accordingly will help you be successful in achieving the goals that you set out ahead of you.
The other important tip is have a plan B. Your plan A the parking may be full and you can't get in. If you have plan B, that will make your day feel a lot less stressful, and then you can do your plan A tomorrow knowing what to expect for that day. We've had many plan A's fail and have to go to plan B. Tip number 4.
Wear the appropriate clothing and bring the appropriate gear. Many times while we were hiking, we see people who are wearing sandals or various different types of footwear that aren't really appropriate for the environment.
We even saw somebody barefoot.
Barefoot. I don't understand it, but footwear really matters, because when you're hiking in Arches National Park, you're going to be hiking on various types of terrain. You'll be hiking on rocks, really soft sand, some brushy areas. And you need to protect your feet, but you also need to give yourself something that has good grip on it, because we had to scramble on some of the trails that we hiked, going up fairly steep slopes of rock face. So in some instances you're leaning forward and you've got a hand on the rock as you're climbing up, and if you're not wearing the right footwear, you may not be able to actually enjoy the hike.
Right, yeah. I even said to Gordon on one of our hikes that we had gone, thank God my sneakers are like sticking to this rock, because I probably wouldn't have made it up this rock had I not had a good solid shoe on. Right. So make sure you have good shoes.
I'd also highly recommend a hat. When you're hiking in the area, there's really no place to seek shade. There's a few places, but they're very, very random where you're going to actually find shade. So I would recommend bringing a hat to help protect your head from the sun. We did find in a couple places there were some trees you could get shade, or from some of the spires that cast the shadow you could get some shade, but you're probably 90% of the day no shade.
And just keeping in mind that just because your thermometer may say 80, when you're out there in that sun, it feels more like 90 and 100. I mean, it was hot in the sun. So make sure that you definitely protect your skin with a hat and a pair of sunglasses, because of course the sun is bright on your eyes, reflecting off of some of these whiter rocks, and so you want to make sure that you're really protecting yourself.
And then a personal decision that you need to make is whether or not you want to wear shorts or lightweight long pants, lightweight long sleeve shirt to help against sunburn, or pack sunscreen, and dress in layers. On our hike, we started at 5 o'clock in the morning one day and it was 50 degrees. We both wore, I was wearing shorts and a thermoball jacket zipped all the way up because it was cold.
It was cold.
A few hours later, after the sun came up, the jacket came off and it went into my pack, which leads me to gear. Have a backpack with you that you're able to shed layers and put stuff in, to where you're not having to try and carry it in your hands, because again, in some areas you're going to have to be scrambling on the rocks, and you may need your hands available to help you get grip and traction.
Some of the other gear that you may want to consider are going to be poles. because we've seen people with and without poles. Stability, if you have a little bit of a balance problem, you may want a pole.
Or if
to
you
help
have
your
bad knees and you need the help coming down.
Elderly, we've seen a lot of elderly out enjoying these
Parks
and
hikes.
stuff. And, so, poles could be important to
Yep.
some people.
Which also leads us to gaiters.
Yes.
We almost always wear gaiters when we hike.
I'm going to skip out and get a gaiter to show you.
Skip, skip. You're not
Skip,
skipping, you're walking.
So gaiters, we got these. They're REI brand. You put it on, and this goes on the bottom of your shoe, and then it will tighten up around your shoe. And you tuck this into a little pocket, and then there's this little hook that goes on your shoestrings, and this goes over the top of your shoe and then around your ankle. And so this really does keep. I think the only reason why we had a little bit of sand in our shoes was because it goes through the netting of the shoe.
Right.
But this really kept a lot of sand out of our shoes.
Keeps the sand out, keeps twigs and little pebbles and all that stuff out of your shoe.
Expensive.
Because it creates a tight seal at the top of your ankle. And then this goes over the opening of your shoe.
And you
where
pull
your
it as
foot
tight
goes
as you
in.
want to around your ankle, around your shoe, to keep everything out of your shoe. They really work. Highly recommend them.
And they come in all different shapes, sizes, and forms.
Brands. Whatever you prefer.
But I highly recommend them because the debris in your foot can cause blisters and other irritations that you just don't need to be bothered with.
Right. Absolutely.
Tip number 3, time of day.
Time of day. What time are you going to go? Are you going to go early to try to beat the crowds in order to get a parking spot, because parking is limited, as we've already talked about? Are you going to go later in the day, which also has its problems? Sometimes the parks close down because they're too full. But if the park is still open, sometimes there's parking because a lot of people did come early. The problem with going later, it's hot. Hot.
I personally am a morning person.
He gets me up at 3 o'clock in the morning.
We go early because I'd rather start my hike at 50 and end it when it's 80 than start it when it's 80 and hike in 80 and 90 degree weather all day.
Way too hot.
Time of day really does matter for a lot of reasons. Like we talked about, when we went on our hike to Delicate Arch, we got there very early in the morning. And there was ample parking.
There was.
About 4 hours later, when we came out, parking lot was full.
Full, packed.
So you wouldn't have had the opportunity to go on that hike at that time of day.
Right.
When we hiked into the Devil's Garden, same thing. When we got there early in the morning, the parking lot had plenty of open spaces. But when we got out in the afternoon, parking lot was full and people were driving loops trying to get in. The Devil's Garden hike, depending on how far back you go, can take several hours.
Right.
So if the parking lot is full at 7 o'clock in the morning, I wouldn't expect it to have many spaces until 11 or 12 o'clock during the day.
Right.
Another bad thing with timing is a couple of times after we'd finished up our plans for the day and we're leaving the park, both times, the gate to the park was actually closed. They were turning traffic around, and they had one of those roadside signs that said, "Park closed, return in 3 hours."
3 hours. You have to wait for 3 hours to go back, and it was already 2 o'clock in the afternoon.
Right. So unless you're planning on catching the evening sunsets, that would have really wrecked your day.
Right.
So we talked about planning earlier, but the time of day really does matter in that planning phase of what you're going to do, where you're going to go, and whether or not you're going to have the opportunity to experience your adventures.
Right. And of course, if you're going to catch a sunset, then you're going to want to go later in the day, and you may not have any problems with parking or getting into the park because it is later in the day. Tip number 2. Food and snacks.
One of my favorite subjects, food and snacks. So, Arches National Park, does not have any concession stands
Zero.
or food or restaurants or anything like that. You may be able to get some snacks in the visitor center, but there's no meals. So make sure that if you're planning a longer day in Arches, bring food and bring plenty of snacks. If you're doing several miles of hiking in the heat, you're going to burn a bunch of calories, and you need to replenish those calories and maintain that energy to where you can have a successful day.
We're bad hikers. We typically don't eat breakfast before we go. We'll bring a protein bar, and then we'll bring some snacks, and so we're eating on the trail because that's what we prefer to do. Some people think that it's important to have a nice breakfast before you leave, but when we're getting up at 3-4 o'clock in the morning, we don't want to take that time to cook a breakfast. So we do what we want to do, you do what you want to do, but make sure that you really bring something that's going to replenish those calories that you're burning on the hike and in the heat just because it's hot.
There's a reason they call it trail mix, people. Just saying. No,
The M&Ms are the best.
Right? I always bring a bag of trail mix with raisins, M&Ms, and nuts. The same thing that everybody usually ends up with, or some variety of that.
Yep.
It's always good to have something to snack on because you are burning a lot of energy. The sun and the heat and the dry environment really takes it out of you, and it's always good. Besides, what better way to enjoy your favorite view of the day than to sit down and have something to eat, even if it's just snacking on a little bit of trail mix. Tip number 1, water.
Make sure you bring
Plenty
lots
of
of water.
Lots of water.
We bring 3 liters, 100 ounces. Usually, we empty this.
Or come really close. Now, it depends on how long the hike is, but we always bring the 3 liters of water with us, always. Because when you're out there and you run out of water, there's nowhere else to get water. In Arches National Park, you may have heard me say it earlier in the video, there's 2 places that you can either refill these, fill these, or any other type of water container you have.
And then who knows what that water's going to taste like.
Right? So we always leave here and begin a hike with our 3 liters of water because it's essential. You can do a little bit without food, but people die of heat stroke every year
in these parks. Absolutely.
Every single year. And when you're at Arches, you will find out that every single trailhead has these big billboard signs about hydration and heat exhaustion kills and all that stuff. So they're very serious about it. So you should be very serious about it as well.
Yeah. The first time I saw one of these signs, I thought it was kind of funny because here we are coming from Glacier National Park where on the trailheads it says bear aware. And here at the Arches, it's hydration. Make sure you bring your water.
Right.
So it's totally, we were kind of laughing at it. It was like, oh, no more bear aware. Now you better have your water.
Right. Water is king out there for a lot of reasons. But you should make sure that you start out with plenty of water. I would not say, again, we go back to our planning of our trip, right? So if you're only planning a 1-mile hike or something, you might think, I don't need all that water. Well, it's better to have more water than you need, because what if your 1-mile hike turns into a 2 or 3 mile hike? Because the park is just gorgeous.
Yes.
And it's easy to go off trail and explore areas that you may end up hours instead of 1 or 2 hours that you planned.
Right.
We did that at Delicate Arch.
We did.
On our way out of Delicate Arch, we took a side trail and spent an extra hour just checking out another area. So, it's always better to pack more water than what you think you're going to need.
So that falls right back to your gear, making sure that you have a backpack that's going to be big enough to hold your water, hold your lunch, hold your snacks, hold your clothes that you need to take off
Right.
because you've dressed in layers. So, just to, go on all of that. You can go to your nearest sports store, whichever one is your favorite, and they would be able to help you with what you need if you have questions.
Yep.
You're also welcome to email us if you have any questions. We can give you some recommendations. We've been hiking for years. We're not expert hikers by any means. We have what we feel works best for us. But we're happy to help you out if there's something that you should need questions answered or whatever, what you think might be helpful for you.
Always willing to make a recommendation. And again, we're not experts. This is just what works for us.
Right.
Through different use and research. I mean, we have Camelback backpacks, but we use a platypus water bladder because we just like the water bladder better. It's easier to fill
Yeah.
up.
I like this clothing.
We like the way the hose attaches
and detaches.
and detaches much easier. So we started out using Camelback water bladders, and then we tried a platypus. So now we both use the platypus water bladders.
The other thing that you might think about doing is putting your water bladder in the refrigerator the night before. That way you start out with cold water. I've even put ice in it before. And the condensation in the backpack is really not a big deal. If anything, it just keeps your back a little bit cooler with that backpack sitting right on your back. So,
And
another bonus to it.
pro tip, guys. When you put this nice, super cold water bladder fresh out of the refrigerator into your backpack, put a beer can right underneath it. That way you can have a cold beer with your lunch.
We've done that too.
Hope you enjoyed our video and that you got something out of our tips. If you did enjoy this video, remember, if you're not subscribed, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. It really helps us. And if you click the bell, the notifications bell, you'll get notified every time we upload new content.
So join us next week when we go and explore the Devil's Garden in Arches National Park.
Don't forget to join us next week when we explore Devil's Garden. Devil's Garden. Okay, I got lost in the moment.
I did. I was like, wait a minute, there was something else I was supposed to say.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
There was.
Well, hang on, Domo. Ready? So join us next week when we go and explore the Devil's Garden area in Glacier. Join us next week when we go and explore the Devil's Garden area
In Arches National Park.
in Arches National Park.
You want a third try?
Okay.
Okay.
At
Arches National Park.
Why can't I get that out?
Try again.
So join us next week when we go and explore.
Start over again. I was playing goofy faces still. Oh my God, she actually did it.
Yeah!